Friends, the situation with the upcoming East Coast port strike is much worse than you might think. This isn't just a small issue. It's shaping up to be an economic disaster that could trigger massive shortages nationwide. I'm here to tell you about 8 essential grocery items that could become invaluable as we head into October. First, let's break down what's happening. This strike involves 13 major ports stretching from Maine to Texas, accounting for nearly half of all U.S. ports. These East Coast ports handle a staggering 43% of the country's imports, valued at $3.7 billion in daily trade. That's 56% of all inbound containers. Yes, even more than the West Coast. The problem? There is a tense standoff between the International Longshoremen's Association and the U.S. Maritime Alliance. If their contract expires on October 1st without a deal, it'll be the first major strike in 50 years. Here's what the workers are demanding: a 77% wage increase and an end to automation. Meanwhile, big players like Walmart, auto manufacturers, and the agriculture industry are urging President Biden to step in, but so far, he's staying quiet. Why? The core of this is control over the supply chain, the economy, and ultimately us, the consumers. What does this mean for you personally? Major shortages are coming. I'm not just talking about delays on holiday shopping. This could mean essential food items disappearing from store shelves. We're likely to see shortages in fresh produce, canned goods, dairy, meat, and other crucial agricultural products. We've seen this story before. Remember the West Coast port strike in 2008? It led to mass automation, 13,000 job losses, and soaring prices. And it's not just the ports at risk. Less cargo means fewer trucks on the road, threatening thousands of trucker jobs in the trucking industry. And yet, somehow, oil, gas, and military terminals remain untouched. You begin to wonder how this chaos was orchestrated. The reality is that food prices are about to skyrocket, especially for poultry, cotton, hay, and red meat. A strike could collapse entire sectors of the agricultural economy. When exports cease, farmers experience financial losses, resulting in increased costs for all of us. By the time you're watching this, the strike may already be underway, but you still have time to prepare. Before it's too late, make sure to stock up on these 8 essential items. Number 1. Canned goods are on the verge of becoming luxury items, and this shift is coming faster than you think. Right now, you might be thinking it's no big deal to grab a few extra cans of beans or soup, but in the near future, it won't be that simple. We anticipate a price surge, potentially increasing the cost of a single can from $1.50 to as much as $10. But it's not just about inflation. There's a deeper problem brewing. East Coast ports, currently experiencing major disruptions, primarily import the tin plate steel needed to produce these cans. Without this crucial material, manufacturers won't be able to keep up with demand. Despite tapping domestic sources, increasing production will require significant time and resources. The result? As a result, there is a decrease in the availability of canned goods, an increase in their prices, and the possibility of finding no canned items at all. This shortage could hit even harder, because canned goods are survival essentials. They have extended shelf lives, are easily consumable, and are abundant in nutrients, making them ideal for a crisis. In times of food shortages, these items go from being basic pantry staples to life-saving assets. If you don't stock up now, you may find yourself paying 10 times today's prices when panic buying begins. Imagine a $1.50 can of soup costing $10 or even more as the demand for non-perishable food soars. Furthermore, recent developments indicate the potential imposition of purchase limits. In some areas, stores are already discussing setting caps, 2 or 3 cans per customer, to prevent hoarding. This is a serious warning sign that things are heading downhill. Picture walking down grocery store aisles, only to find empty shelves and out-of-stock signs everywhere. Add to that the growing desperation of people willing to pay any amount for even a few cans of beans or vegetables. It's a grim scenario that's becoming more likely each day. Another update emphasizes that the price of metal is not the only factor. Shipping costs have also exploded due to global fuel shortages and new environmental regulations affecting international shipping routes. These factors will only further disrupt the supply chain. Plus, the workforce shortages at production plants and transportation delays are pushing the situation closer to a full-blown crisis. The message is clear. Canned goods are no longer just a cheap and easy option. They're becoming scarce and valuable, and acting now could save you from facing empty shelves and skyrocketing prices later. 2. Flour and grains. Fellow Americans, it's time to pay attention to a serious threat to our food supply chain. Flour, something we often take for granted, is at the heart of this problem. On average, each of us consumes about 134 pounds of flour every year. Here's the alarming part. Grains imported through East Coast ports account for 80% of our flour production, and any disruption in this flow could have devastating consequences. Let's put this into perspective. The U.S. imports 13.2 million metric tons of wheat and other grains annually, with East Coast ports handling almost half of those shipments. If those ports go offline due to a strike, the supply of grains will shrink drastically. Fewer grains mean less flour on grocery store shelves, and before long, something as basic as a 5-pound bag of flour, which currently costs $3.99, could skyrocket to $20, $30, or even $50. But it's not all flour. Grains form the backbone of many foods: bread, pasta, cereal, even your kids' favorite snacks. The impact doesn't stop there. Animal feed consumes a staggering 65% of grain imports. If grain supplies dry up, feed costs will surge, causing prices for poultry, beef, and pork to climb dramatically. Every corner of the food industry will feel the pressure, leading to higher costs for consumers. We've seen this before. During the 2008 supply chain crisis, flour prices shot up by 90% in just a few months, and that was without any port closures. Now, with the potential shutdown of 13 of our busiest ports, flour and grain prices could spike by 450% in mere weeks. Sound extreme? Consider this. A minor disruption in wheat supply last year caused prices to increase by 25%. Imagine that effect multiplied 10, 20, or 30 times. This issue extends beyond empty shelves at your local grocery store. It involves making difficult decisions. You might soon find yourself deciding between buying flour or filling up your gas tank. The ripple effects could extend well beyond the United States. As one of the top 5 grain exporters in the world, a halt in our supply chain will tighten global markets, leading to skyrocketing prices internationally. With increased competition for scarce resources, American consumers will bear the brunt of the cost. The numbers don't lie. A 1% drop in global wheat supply, according to the United Nations, drives prices up by 7 to 10%. Imagine a drastic decrease of 40-50%. That's the dire situation we find ourselves in. If this situation escalates, a $3.99 bag of flour could end up costing you $100. The time to act is now. Stock up while you still can, because once this crisis hits, there's no going back. Number 3. If you have a fondness for fresh fruits such as apples, bananas, oranges, or berries, be prepared for an imminent surge in prices. Right now, you're paying $1, $2, or maybe $3 per pound, but soon $8, $10, or even $15 a pound could become the norm. Imagine a single apple costing $5 and a small basket of berries soaring to $25 or more. What's driving this surge? The East Coast ports handle more than 65% of all fresh produce imports, moving billions of dollars worth of fruits and vegetables into grocery stores weekly. Disrupting the supply chain will lead to a rapid decline in fresh fruit availability. The U.S. imports over 9.3 million metric tons of fresh fruit annually, and the East Coast alone processes 5.7 million metric tons, 62% of the supply. If those shipments stop, there's no quick solution. Domestic production simply can't make up for such a massive shortage, and there's no infrastructure to redirect all that production to other ports without causing more logistical chaos. But it's not just the fruit itself that will cost more. A breakdown in imports also impacts refrigeration and storage, with distributors paying huge premiums to transport and store what little they have left. This will drive prices even higher at the grocery store. Within a matter of weeks, your local produce section may turn into a deserted area, characterized by deteriorated inventory and exorbitant prices. That $4 bag of oranges, it could spike to $25. A $3 container of strawberries might shoot up to $20, and bananas, currently a budget-friendly snack at around 60 cents per pound, could soar to $6 or more per pound. Sound impossible? Think back to the 2015 port slowdown. Avocado prices tripled, and citrus fruit costs doubled in a matter of weeks. This was only due to a minor disruption. A long-lasting strike now could have a far more devastating impact. This isn't just a temporary issue. If fruit harvests miss their shipping windows, entire seasons could spoil, leaving shelves empty and prices inflated for months or even years. The ripple effects would be enormous, damaging the entire industry and pushing costs higher. Beyond the financial burden, the health implications are serious. Fresh fruits provide essential vitamins, minerals, and nutrients for millions of American families. Rising prices will force many to make cuts, exacerbating the health crisis as people resort to less nutritious, cheaper processed foods. This isn't just about grocery bills, it's about losing access to healthy food for millions. Now's the time to prepare. Stock up on fruits you can freeze, dehydrate, or preserve in any way. If this strike hits and we lose 62% of our fresh fruit supply overnight, you'll be facing empty shelves and skyrocketing prices well into 2024 and beyond. 4 chocolates. This one is going to shock everyone, not just those with a sweet tooth. Imagine your $2 chocolate bar skyrocketing to $12, $15, or even $20 overnight. But the real concern isn't just the price hike. It's the looming threat of chocolate scarcity. Cocoa is one of the most import-reliant crops, and a huge portion of it comes through East Coast ports. If these ports shut down, we could see an 80% drop in chocolate products reaching U.S. shelves within months. What most people don't realize is how fragile the supply chain for cocoa is. Cacao beans, which come mainly from West Africa, have a very narrow window for harvesting, processing, and shipping. Even the slightest delay, like a port strike, could cause shipments to sit and spoil. If this happens, the entire chocolate industry, from small artisan makers to major corporations, will scramble for the remaining supply. That's where things get expensive. Prices won't just double or triple. Companies could outbid each other for the remaining inventory, causing prices to jump by 500% or more. Who will ultimately bear the financial burden? Us. But that's not even the worst part. When demand surpasses supply, manufacturers may resort to reducing the cocoa content, using lower quality ingredients, or taking shortcuts. Although you may pay $20 for a $2 chocolate bar, it may not taste the same or be real chocolate. The impact won't stop at grocery stores. Bakeries, restaurants, and coffee shops rely on chocolate for everything from cookies and cakes to lattes and desserts. They'll have no choice but to raise their prices, shrink portions, or stop offering certain items altogether. We've seen this before. Remember the cocoa shortage in 2010? Prices spiked and people panicked, buying up any chocolate they could find. This time, the situation might be even more dire. If the ports close and cocoa shipments stop, we might see chocolate vanish from shelves by the holiday season. Next year, there won't be any chocolate Santas, Valentine's Day candies, or Easter bunnies. So, if you think chocolate is just a luxury you can skip, think again. When prices leap from $2 to $15, it won't just be a treat, it'll be a rare commodity. Number 5. Coffee crisis. Why your morning cup could soon be out of reach. Your daily cup of coffee might soon turn from a comforting routine into a luxury item, and we're not talking about a slight price hike. Right now, you may be paying around $12 per pound for coffee, but soon that same bag could cost $50, $75, or even more. This isn't just alarmism. It's a harsh reality we need to prepare for. The East Coast ports play a critical role in importing a large portion of the coffee beans consumed in the United States, with shipments coming from major coffee-producing countries like Brazil, Colombia, and Vietnam. Any disruption in the import process means backlogs, delays, and potentially spoiled beans sitting in warehouses or stranded on ships. Spoilage leads to wasted product, less supply, and higher prices. In the United States, we drink 400 million cups of coffee every day, making us the world's largest coffee market. A looming port strike could severely disrupt 60% to 70% of our coffee imports, threatening not only higher prices, but also the availability of certain coffee blends. The $10 bag of coffee you're used to grabbing from your local store might disappear entirely, and what's left could cost you a fortune. As coffee becomes scarce, both your neighborhood cafes and big chains like Starbucks will face tough decisions. Either dramatically reduce their menu options or raise prices to levels we've never seen. A single cup could cost you $10, $12, or even $15, and it won't be the same high-quality brew you're accustomed to. Inferior beans or stale substitutes may become the norm, leading to a noticeable drop in flavor and quality. For those who rely on that daily caffeine boost to get through the day, this is no small issue. It's not just about taste, it's about access. And the warning signs are already here. The coffee futures market is reacting, with prices creeping upward as importers and wholesalers brace for the worst. But that's not all. Coffee plants are highly sensitive to changes in climate, and recent global shifts have already resulted in smaller yields and poorer quality beans. If we add a supply chain crisis like this potential port strike on top of existing climate pressures, we're heading straight for a coffee catastrophe. Smaller suppliers may go under, leaving only major corporations to control the market, driving prices up even further. Picture yourself in the grocery store, standing in front of the coffee aisle. You won't have the option to choose from 20 different brands and roasts, but if you're lucky, you'll find only 2 or 3, and they'll cost 3 to 5 times more than you're accustomed to. If you don't stock up now, you could soon be paying $50 to $100 per pound, with no clear timeline for when or if prices will ever stabilize. This is more than just a price hike. It's a coffee apocalypse. The coming crisis. 6. Cooking oil shortages. Ahead. If you thought the supply chain issues during the pandemic were challenging, brace yourself. It's about to get significantly worse. The most impacted items are likely to be cooking oils. Right now, you might pay around $17.80 for a standard bottle of olive or vegetable oil, but soon, those prices could skyrocket to $30, $40, or even $50 per bottle. This isn't mere speculation, it's a reality based on historical trends. During the supply chain disruptions of 2021 and 2022, global cooking oil prices soared by 65% in just a few months. The average price of canola oil in the United States jumped from $2.50 to nearly $7 by mid-2022. Now imagine a similar increase, but on an even larger scale. The East Coast ports, which serve as our primary entry points for essential ingredients such as olive oil, palm oil, and sunflower oil, are currently experiencing a significant slowdown. These ports account for 35% of all U.S. imports of edible oils, and any disruption will send shockwaves through the food industry. In 2023 alone, the United States imported $5.7 billion worth of cooking oils from countries such as Spain, Italy, Malaysia, and Argentina. Without these imports, our domestic supply could dwindle to nothing within a matter of weeks. And it's not just rising prices we have to worry about. Empty shelves will become the new normal. Remember how hard it was to find basic items during the peak of the pandemic? Now, picture that scenario, but worse. Why is the impact so severe? Cooking oil is a fundamental ingredient in a multitude of food products. We find cooking oil in nearly everything we consume, from salad dressings and sauces to baked goods and prepackaged foods, not just for frying. Manufacturers will scramble for what little remains in the supply chain, driving prices sky high and passing those costs directly to us, the consumers. Moreover, domestically produced oils like corn and soybean oil won't escape the price hikes. The the ongoing disruptions will also affect these oils, which heavily rely on imported raw materials like fertilizers and other agricultural inputs. When these materials become scarce, production slows down or may even come to a complete standstill, resulting in shortages and surging prices. In fact, during the port congestion crisis of 2012, soybean oil prices skyrocketed by 30% in just one quarter. Now, we're on the brink of an even more significant crisis. To complicate matters, the USDA reported that in 2023, the U.S. consumed 16.5 million metric tons of edible oils, but produced less than half that amount domestically. Imports, primarily from the very ports currently facing shutdowns, have always filled this gap. What will happen when those imports cease? The market will plunge into chaos. Manufacturers will prioritize their largest clients, leaving everyday consumers like us scrambling to secure even a single bottle. Prepare yourself for the reality of the cooking oil crisis. Prices and availability may soon become a serious challenge. 7. Poultry and meat. If you thought last year's meat prices were steep, prepare yourself for an even harsher reality. Currently, you might shell out $6 for a pack of chicken breasts, but following the anticipated strike, you could be staring at shocking prices between $30 and $50 per pack. The situation won't end with chicken. Beef, pork, and other meats are likely to follow suit, potentially triggering an unprecedented meat crisis. Let's reflect on past events. In 2022, supply chain disruptions and soaring feed costs, exacerbated by the war in Ukraine, caused a staggering 177% hike in poultry prices across the United States. While that may seem manageable, for millions of families, it meant sacrificing essential protein sources. Now, projections indicate that we may witness a staggering increase of 300%, 400%, or even more. The East Coast ports are critical for importing a significant portion of feed grains and raw materials required to sustain our poultry and livestock industries. These ports allow essential feeds, such as corn and soybean meal, to flow through. Farmers struggle to access the crucial feed for their operations when these ports shut down or back up. Previous disruptions in 2021 saw feed prices soar by 30 to 40% in just months. Farmers face tough choices. Do they pay exorbitant feed prices, or do they start culling their flocks and herds? If this strike materializes, we could witness a 50 to 70% drop in feed availability for our poultry and livestock sectors. Farmers will have to make heartbreaking decisions in the coming weeks. As feed prices skyrocket, many will have no choice but to reduce their stock, which will drastically decrease meat production and availability. During the 2022 bird flu outbreak, the USDA reported culling over 58 million birds to contain the spread of the virus, leading to a nearly 50% spike in egg and poultry prices nationwide. Imagine a scenario where there is no disease, but a self-imposed crisis due to feed shortages. The number of chickens and livestock being slaughtered could double or even triple those figures. This situation won't just affect prices, it will result in a severe supply crisis. Less meat on store shelves means fewer choices and eye-watering prices. Fast food chains, restaurants, and suppliers will fiercely compete for the remaining limited meat, causing a ripple effect everywhere. Remember the time a single McDonald's franchise in California sold chicken nuggets for $15 during the pandemic? That could soon be the norm across the nation. We are also facing a significant threat to our pork and beef supplies. According to USDA data, in 2023, we imported over 1.2 million metric tons of meat, much of which came through East Coast ports. If those imports face halts or delays, we will encounter a supply crunch that sends pork and beef prices skyrocketing, reminiscent of 2022, when the cost of ground beef surged by 20% in just one quarter. Coupled with a port strike, we could see ground beef prices soar from $5 per pound to between $25 and $30. Pork, which is already struggling with rising production costs, could face similar increases. Imagine walking into a store and seeing pork chops priced at $40 a pound, or a simple beef roast tagged at $150 or more. Consumers won't be the only ones affected. Our farmers and ranchers may face an alarming rate of business closure due to the fallout. Many are already struggling with inflation and rising operational costs, and this level of disruption may be too much to bear. The USDA indicated that over 12% of small to mid-sized farms closed in 2023 due to economic strains. If the port strike adds another layer of chaos to the supply chain, that figure could easily double or triple, threatening to obliterate our domestic meat industry. 8. Sardines, the stockpiling essentials. You can't afford to miss. Let's dive into a food item that deserves your attention: sardines. While many people overlook these small fish, they are on the brink of becoming a valuable asset in your pantry. Sardines are nutrient-rich, offering a wealth of omega-3 fatty acids, calcium, and vitamin D, essential elements when fresh food becomes a rarity. Best of all, these canned delights are shelf-stable for years, requiring no cooking. Simply pop open a can for an instant, protein-packed meal. The reality is that global stocks are facing serious challenges. Overfishing, particularly in the Pacific Ocean, combined with the effects of climate change, is significantly depleting sardine populations. The Food and Agriculture Organization reports that global sardine catches have already declined by over 20% in the past decade. Additionally, recent studies indicate that rising ocean temperatures are affecting sardine spawning patterns, further threatening their numbers. These environmental and industry disruptions are expected to cause sardine prices to surge in the coming months. Some analysts predict a price increase of 15% to 20% by the end of the year. Given the global inflation trends and supply chain issues affecting the fishing industry, now is the time to consider stocking up. Brands like Wild Planet and King Oscar still have stock available, but supplies may dwindle quickly. Experts recommend buying sardines now before the inevitable price hikes hit. Once supply tightens, these small cans of fish could become a precious commodity, significantly more valuable than you might anticipate. Not only are sardines convenient and nutrient-dense, but they also offer a variety of culinary possibilities. You can enjoy them on toast, in salads, or as part of pasta dishes. They are an excellent source of protein for anyone looking to diversify their food intake without relying solely on fresh produce. Don't let this opportunity slip away. By adding sardines to your stockpile today, you're making a smart move for your health and your wallet. We've talked about the looming threat of rising prices. Costs are set to soar, store shelves will become barren, and items you once considered everyday necessities could soon be treated like luxury goods. We're on the brink of an economic and supply chain crisis that could ripple through the nation's food and beverage sectors. The choices you make now will shape your preparedness. Will you be secure and ready, or will you find yourself caught off guard and scrambling for resources? Don't wait for the storm to arrive before you take action. Start stockpiling essential items today. Gather what you need while you still can, because the clock is ticking. Once the chaos begins, the window of opportunity will slam shut, leaving you with no chance to turn back. Thank you for listening, and remember to stay informed, prepared, and safe. When the system falters, you want to be among those who saw it coming.